Hello everyone, it is I, the Witch of Paint, and this week I am going to be painting an Irish house. More specifically, this beautiful blue house that was at a corner of a village that my parents and I have walked past many times. It stood out to me mainly because of the gorgeous blue colour it has. It's something I really like about the Irish villages I've visited. In between your, usual colours of white, brown, maybe a couple of greys in there, you get these really brightly coloured houses in red, pink, purple, blue, and so on as well. It's so cute and adorable, and so for you, I have this blue house today, so let's get to painting. First, I made a little quick sketch to give me an idea of where things went, what the shapes are, and so on. I was trying not to focus too much on the details, but I don't think I was very successful with that. To be fair, with the simple block shapes the house had, there wasn't that much detail aside from the windows, but still, I tried to keep things simple, sort of. There are some very cute elements to the house, like the little tiny house that's sort of coming out of the building for the front door. At least I think that is what it's for, because there's also another door, I think. Oh well, it doesn't matter. Another detail that I really like about this house is the corner that sort of doesn't go at a 90-degree angle, like you would expect from a regular house. Instead, what you get with this house is you have a sort of half hexagonal shape with the windows wrapping around it, and it creates this really interesting look to the house that is so unlike your usual block houses. And if I can guess right from my reflection in the window, you would also get a really nice view on the ocean, which in my opinion is a huge bonus. And then you've got something that is very typical of Irish houses, which is the sort of brick detailing in a kind of highlight colour at two of the corners. In this case, they are in white, like the window frames and the door. And those are basically the main colours of the house, blue and white. For the painting itself, I took away some of the foreground elements, that being the lamp that shows car drivers. Look, there's a zebra crossing there. If there's people coming, stop and let them pass, as well as some of the railings there. I kept the wall that was sort of next to the house, but that's about it. I just wanted most of that house to show and not have it blocked off. From my own observation, there are quite a few different styles of houses in Ireland. I'm not sure if it's okay to call it styles, but in my head it's a form of art, so styles of houses is what I'm going to call them. Anyways, these go from a bunch of one-family homes with gardens to shopping streets that give off Diagon Alley vibes, to the typical low Irish cottages, and then the ruins you can find literally anywhere and everywhere in Ireland. Seriously, every few hundred meters you will come across either some old tower or a house that has been falling apart for who knows how long, or just whole monasteries and churches that have fallen into ruins. And then you have the houses that look as though you just walked into a typical English street, brick houses with those typical English doors, a small garden, perhaps it has one of those big windows coming out of it in a half-hexagon shape as well at the front, much like the half-hexagon shape in the house I'm painting. Irish architecture, just from me going around and looking at different houses, has been influenced by a lot of different things and also countries. To be fair, I would say the English-style houses were more like forced upon them, but you get what I mean. Nevertheless, I wanted to know more about this, so come on along with me on a trip down the internet to see what we can find out about Irish architecture. Now, when thinking of Ireland, of course, one of the first sort of houses that comes to mind, at least for me, is probably something like the purple house here that I have also taken a picture of in the village. They are long houses, perhaps with a sort of thatched roof, like this sort of grassy kind of thing. Probably only has one room, though there are Irish cottages, of course, with more than that. And usually these houses are white, which this one isn't. It's been painted purple, but really most of the time you won't find them in between buildings, I think, with like 2 or 3 stories. It's so funny how mixed these villages are. Like, you've got tiny houses, and then around them you've got big houses. Not like super, super big, like it's only either 2 or 3 stories. It's not that huge, but it's still very, very cute if you ask me. These small, typical Irish cottages have been around since the Stone Age, at least from what I have been reading, and I think that is quite cool, if you ask me. That something will stick around for so long. And these cottages wouldn't have a foundation, and the floors would usually be lined with like slate or stone flags or rammed earth, depending on what you had to build with, in a sense. Then you've got the more urban areas, so like your big cities, which I guess in Ireland is mostly just Dublin. I haven't actually walked around enough in Dublin to take proper pictures of different styles of houses, like the articles talk about, you know. But some areas of Dublin are particularly influenced by Georgian architecture, which doesn't really have a particular style. It's just basically anything built during that time when England was ruled by a bunch of Georges. Meaning you could find anything from Greek-inspired buildings with lots of columns to your typical English street that you would see in England a lot. So, in a sense, thanks to English occupation in Ireland, their ways of building have been transferred to the beautiful country that Ireland is. Now, this is nothing against English houses themselves. I love English houses. I've lived in a typical English red brick house, and coming from Germany, where the most my family could afford was a small flat, where we barely had enough room to live, and then coming to England, where we could immediately rent a house. Like, it didn't take us that long to even find one. In Germany, we were looking all over and there wasn't anything for us where we could comfortably live as a big family. So this was great. I mean, we got our own rooms. But seriously, seeing English-style houses in Ireland, to me, is just a sad reminder of the occupation and the horrendous torment the English have inflicted upon the Irish. But of course, it just kind of also contributed to the diversity in buildings in Ireland, in a way. But let's not dwell on that, shall we? Instead, let's see what other types of houses we've got in Ireland. One that has stood out in particular to me is the style of house that I am painting right now, which is the house that's got the brick details on either side of the corners, and the tiny little house in the front that kind of is for the front door. I've seen that style of housing a lot around here, at least in the west side of Ireland, near the west coast. It's very popular. Like, you would drive down a road in the countryside, basically, and you would just see a bunch of these houses. And then you've got the sort of house that I live in that's also very popular. It's basically a regular house with a sort of section in the front where you've got unevenly placed stones around the front door section, so you've got the house sticking out a little bit there as well, like with the other houses, but it's made out of brick instead of whatever the other rest of the houses. It's not painted over or anything, and our house has got a separate section that sort of serves as a sunroom, and during particular times of the year, the sun sets right in the middle of that room, and it's very pretty. Now, when you think about modern Irish architecture, particularly in, say, the cities, where they are building, apartment blocks, well, my family and I tend to call it the German style, meaning They are mostly quadratic, have no decorative elements to them, are either white, grey or brown, and look a little ugly. No, I have not taken a picture of those because, like I've said, I haven't taken a lot of pictures in cities. There's also, like, standalone family homes that have the style, but not a lot, thankfully, but those that do exist in this German style that's quadratic, white, and boring. I don't know, my heart hurts every time I see it. I don't know. I'm so glad the house we currently live in is not like that. I really wish that I will never have to live in another German-style building ever again, because I really don't like the way it looks, and I'm just glad I don't live near them. Now, during my search, I have also discovered the Irish Architectural Archive, which does have a building in Dublin, which is pretty cool, and you could visit it for free. And I think I've now got that on my list of places I want to go to, because, I don't know, in a way, Irish architecture just really interests me, in a way, a little bit. It's just generally also a very cool website to get lost in if architecture or old buildings interests you. I definitely recommend checking out the website. Link to that down below. Now, how about we talk about my painting a little? I tried very hard to keep things loose, but I don't think I quite succeeded, as I've mentioned earlier. This painting was supposed to be a quick one, but instead it took me almost 2 hours, which is not exactly quick, if you ask me, at least not for my standards. Nevertheless, I did what I could to get the building across, using some ink to outline the building's main parts, like the walls, windows, the roof, and, of course, the brick details at the sides of the buildings. I know I wasn't supposed to, get hung up on the details, but that was a detail that was definitely going to be there. I wanted to keep it white, basically. So that's why I put it in, because I knew it was going to have to be marked out in some way, so I did that real quick. At first I had sketched out the neighbouring houses as well, but then I decided to make them blurry details next to the blue building, because I didn't want to draw too much attention to them. I wanted the attention to be on the beautiful blue house. I used mostly phthalo blue for the blue colour of the house, trying to get it as vibrant as possible, while mixing a little ultramarine deep with burnt sienna in order to make the shadow colours. All these colours are, once again, from my Van Gogh, not real Van Gogh, the brand, watercolour palette. I know, I use them a lot. For some of the background details, I used a mix of different greens with the blues I already had on my palette. I don't remember which greens I used exactly, though, so that's why I'm not mentioning any names, because I didn't look at the swatch card before picking my colours. I just picked a random green, and now we're left with this. I didn't remember to write down what greens I used. I didn't remember to look what colour I'm even using. Might have been Viridian, might have been any of the other greens I have in my palette. Then I remember that there is in fact a building to the right of the blue house, but it was too late for me to get rid of the green properly because I had already painted the hill. I just kind of ended up leaving it until the end to fix that. Same with the white border I forgot to put at the bottom of a section of the house, and thanks to me trying to paint more loosely, a lot of the white parts got blue paint on them, and I attempted to cover that up by using it for shadows in the areas where there should be shadows anyway, and later on I took my white gel pen and then just tried to cover up the areas that got too dark just a little bit. I shade in the windows as well a little, even though they are mostly white, aside from the glass itself, in a way. I did put a little bit of a silhouette in one of the bottom windows, mainly because you see my reflection in the window and I thought I'd leave it in, but I tried to make it a little bit different. Don't get too attached to it though, because in the end it doesn't show up very well, and that's all on me. Because I was messing around there too much. The rest of the windows just get it like a little shading and then some highlights added to them. Maybe I should have kept the foreground elements, but I didn't think they'd look good and would only make everything look a little cluttered and distracting. I mean, in the end it looks fine, but I think a little of the depth ended up getting lost, partially also because the house is so close. Perhaps I should have made it a little smaller, But I did it the way it is, and I think it still looks good. So now we're at the end of the video, so let's take a look at the final result together, huh? As much as I struggled with keeping things loose with this painting, and not obsessing over the few details that the house has, I think it turned out very beautifully. The colour is very nice, the blue especially, and I definitely want to paint more of these Irish houses because the diversity in buildings here is just fascinating to me and I want to talk more about them. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave me a like, comment something about perhaps the architecture in your country, and of course, remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I am the Witch of Paint, and I shall see you all next Sunday. Bye! Oh, well, look at that! You've made it to the end of the video. Well done. Allow me to reward you with beautiful, beautiful outtakes. Oh, I'm so sorry, English people. I just called your kings a bunch of Georges. I'm sorry. Then, at least. Instead, the corner bit sort of. For the painting itself, I took away the foreground elements